Good evening, everybody. Welcome to iScreemZ, and we're continuing our Women in Horror Month interviews. Before I introduce you to our special guest tonight, I would just like to introduce you to Mr. Carl Kiefer here, who's my co-host, and he's also the head of the Deviant Legion podcast network. Say hi, Carl.
Greetings. Thank you for getting me to join this meeting with Stacey. Really appreciate it.
Fantastic. And Carl is no good at, well, he just completely blew the surprise. Well, you know who it is because you've seen the promos. With us today, we have Stacey Nelkin, and you know her, obviously, most of you know her as for her amazing acting career. But there's so much more to Stacey, which I'm really excited to get into. You know, as I said, this is, as these interviews have been, they've been about women in horror. Stacey is so much more than a woman in horror. She's an all-around actor, but she's also an author. She's been a marriage counselor. She is doing amazing work as an alcohol and substance abuse counselor. And I'd like to welcome to the show Ms. Stacey Nelkin. Stacey, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on, Stephen. Thank you. And Carl, great to meet you.
Great to meet you too, Stacey.
And people often say, you know, start at the beginning when you're, you know, with a story, but actually I don't want to do that. I would like to start right now because Stacey, I got to tell you, that is one of the things that really, I mean, obviously I'm not going to lie, I'm a massive fan, love Halloween 3, love your acting career, but the fact that you're doing this work at the Bridge as an alcohol and a substance abuse counselor is fascinating to me. Before I ask you, you had asked me just before we went on the air, hey, Steve, what's your son doing these days? Well, I'll tell you, Stacey, he's actually training to do exactly what you're doing right now.
Really?
Yes.
Good for him.
So could you tell us a bit about, tell us a lot about what you're doing right now? Then?
Well, I'm no longer working at a place called The Bridge because that was when I was living in New York City. I'm now living in Massachusetts.
Okay.
In the Berkshires. And I'm working at a place called the Keenan House for Women. And it's a residence where women who are just out of detox are there, and they live in a residence, and they do multiple AA and NA meetings a day. They have to get sponsors and work the program in the house. There's about 15 women there, and they all support each other. It's also a little difficult, as you can imagine, women together, and they're all going through their own issues. And a lot of them have lost custody of their children, which is very, very sad, from substance abuse. So they're fighting to show that they can be in recovery and be a responsible parent. So it's a completely different demographic than what I was working with in New York, which was mostly a lot of men who were formerly incarcerated, or who either just got out of prison or just got out of the mental hospital. So they were people with severe mental health issues and substance abuse. So it was a lot of, as I said, mostly men, and a lot of guys with schizophrenia who were smoking 10, 15 joints a day. You know, some have said, oh, I smoked like 30 joints a day, which I don't even know how you could do that. But anyway,
right.
So, and some crack addicts, you know, there was that, but very few opioid addicts. And, you know, it was very, very different than what I see now in Massachusetts here in Pittsfield. And it's mostly white women. It's all women because it's a program for women, but it's mostly white women. We have a few women of color, but mostly opioid addicts, a lot of young heroin addicts. And it's, you know, it started the typical story you hear. They had an injury and they were administered OxyContin, and then that got too expensive and they turned to heroin because it's a lot cheaper. So, and then obviously got very addicted. There's also a lot of alcoholism, all of that. So it's a completely different demographic and equally as needy. And I love I love helping. I love getting to be there for these people. This is a kind of a personal mission for me because my father died from heroin. Well, actually, it was methadone, but he was a heroin addict for a very long time. And it's amazing he lived as long as he did. He died when he was 37. But so for me, this is, trying to give back. So anyway, and it's, people that are in recovery are really amazing because they're very spiritual. Almost all of them have hit bottom.
Yeah.
And your son will see this too. You go into recovery usually because you're at the very, very bottom and you can only go up from there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hope and a lot of love and a lot of fear along with that too. But, it's great to be on that journey with them.
Yeah.
So,
Stacey, I never ever want to be that nodding head that just says, oh yeah, I get it, I understand. This is one of those cases where I do understand because it's hit very close to home for me as well. And that's the reason why Jared's now on that path.
yeah.
So, thank you for what you do. It really is vital work. And I was going to ask you what the factor was that kind of led you into this, but you've already answered that. It doesn't get any clearer than that. What I would like to ask you is there any one particular kind of soul feeding moment where you were kind of hit and you thought, wow, I really made a difference today. This day was like, wow.
I run a lot of groups. I did at the Bridge. I ran a writing group and a trauma group, and running the groups is very exciting. And every time I run a group, I feel like I'm this big and I get all nervous every time before I do one. And especially now at the Keenan House for Women, because um, it's they're living there, so it's more intimate. And running a group where last week I ran a group, and there was so much laughter, and they have to write notes after how they felt about the group, and for them all to write, this was so great to know that I can laugh in recovery and have fun and smile. And we did a lot of drama games, and it was really fun, and they all got into it, and it was awesome. And it was like a full hour of just playing like kids, and for them to also bond. That was the point, for them to kind of get intimate and do little exercises with each other, um, rather than gossiping and being, as women can be with each other. Well, you guys don't know this, but anyway. So those moments, or when somebody says, you've really helped me, that's everything. It's incredibly rewarding. And I have to say, and your son will see this, and how beautiful that he's in recovery, and you must be so happy. And that will help him being on the other side and being a counselor. First of all, he's going to have so much knowledge about it all and so much empathy, but it's going to reinforce his own recovery. You'll see. It's the most rewarding work I've ever done, much more than acting. That's all ego, the doing movies and people see you, and it's all ego, and it's great. But, until when you're really helping another person, I mean, sure, it's great to entertain and make people laugh, but it's different. I don't know how to say it's different.
No, you're perfect. It's perfectly clear. I see exactly where you're, and I understand. Like I say there, I am intrigued as because you did marriage. Do you still do marriage counseling as well, or
No. I wrote a book about relationships, and I was a relationship expert because I wrote a book, and then had PR people, and I wound up getting on CNN and all of those kind of talk shows and morning news shows. And then it morphed into being a parenting expert when I have 3 children. So that actually felt a lot easier than being a relationship expert. I have been married 3 times, and I am known to give a lot. I'm now married for 22 years to my husband, and he is the father of our 3 children. So it took me 3 times to get it right. But hopefully people can bypass the first two, and won't have to go to three. But so being a relationship expert, parenting expert, it was all it wasn't like being a substance abuse counselor. It was very, very different, very different.
When you were doing that, and you were when you were doing the marriage counseling, outside of, because I'm again, full transparency, that's how I do things. I'm on marriage number 2, so
Okay.
right, I understand. Outside of finance, which we both know, that's a big issue in relationships, and infidelity, what did you find was sort of the number 3 that would come up for reasons for problems in relationships?
Oh, well, those two were really the biggest.
Mhm.
I think the addiction is another thing that can come in.
Right.
Obviously, and what I was going to say before that is lack of communication. When people don't communicate properly, and I see this with so many people, and I know for myself, it took me years and years and years, because I had a lot of trauma in my early life,
Mhm.
to be able to say things to my husband without being afraid that he's going to leave me or think I'm stupid, or whatever it might be. And I see that with so many people, and incredibly intelligent people as well. I think and I see this with my son, who's right now in college and going through something with a girlfriend, and I can see this hesitancy to talk and say what he's feeling and what he's worried about with her and what's going on. I think for so many of us, that lack of communication is a big thing. And that kind of permeates everything, and that can cause the infidelity, that can cause way worse problems over the finances, because people are afraid to talk about that, or afraid to say, hey, I'm insecure, you're spending too much, I think we're going to go broke, whatever it might be. I think being able to say what is on your mind, what's in your guts, what's in your heart, it's so difficult for so many of us. And I think that can be the biggest problem
Mhm.
in relationships of any kind, whether it's a friendship or a marriage. Obviously, in intimate relationships, that's even more important.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I
because
think that's a big
everything's a
one.
relationship at the end of the day, right? Like you say, friends and everything. You got to look at everything. Your colleagues. Um,
Exactly.
I got to ask you though, and
Go ahead.
I'm not trying to be glib or flippant, but was there ever that time when, obviously, you're dealing with these marriage problems, and we all know what the big ones are. Was there ever that time when you were dealing with a couple and an issue kind of come up, and you sort of thought, okay, this is what this is a non-issue, but it was a big thing to them, be it the toilet paper on the wrong way or whatever, right?
Right. Right. I didn't see couples privately like
Mhm.
that. So I was more, as I said, when I wrote this book,
Mhm.
with a therapist, then I started doing all this publicity, and it just kind of took off because I could actually put, 3 words together and go on and talk about it. Um, so I was not actually a licensed marriage counselor, which is something my daughter is about to be going to grad school to train to do.
Wow, awesome.
So I'll get back to you in a few years about that, and she'll have her clients already.
Beautiful,
So
beautiful. That's a
yeah.
so so we're kind of moving slowly backwards here.
Mhm.
And I'm going to take a big jump in a second. But before I
Okay.
do that, I want to kind of join the dots here. As you said, you find acting, entertaining people is awesome, but you wanted to move away from that because you wanted to do something more
Yeah.
that was more personal.
Right.
So what was the point in the road here where you kind of hit that part in the acting and you said, you know what? No, I want to jump here.
Mm. You're a very good interviewer, Stephen. Seriously, I've done a lot of these. You
Really?
ask very good
Thank you.
questions. Yeah, yeah. I'm quite serious. So, what actually uh got me into this was my husband mentioned he saw we had just moved back to New York City. There was an ad for some classes where you could get a certificate in drama therapy. And I
Mhm.
thought, oh, acting and therapy, which I've been in, most of my life. Um, and my acting career was not really happening. You get to a certain age and the offers stop, or I get called in to read two lines, and it's like, I don't think so. Thank you. Um, so the acting jobs were stopping. I was also we adopted our third child is adopted from China, and she's had a lot of challenges, and that was very all consuming for me. And so I took these classes, and these classes were amazing. And I then did an internship after I graduated, and and I worked at New York Presbyterian Hospital, and it was incredible doing running groups and with adolescents and adults with mental health and some substance abuse. And I thought, oh, this is what I want to do. And they said, well, great, but you need to get a master's. I said, master's? I don't even have a bachelor's degree because I had been acting since I was 14. And I
Right.
graduated from high school with honors, and a very tough high school in New York City. And I was acting already. And I was also at the time dating an older gentleman who, very successful, who this is, who said, you don't need to go to college. You're already doing what you want to do. And I went, yeah, he's right. And then they flew me out to California to do a film, and the rest is history. So I had taken many classes, but didn't even have my bachelor's. So then somebody said, well, wait, you could become a certified alcohol and substance abuse counselor with a high school diploma. I went, yes, that I have. And I took the classes, and I was um, very few of us actually finished. Most of the people taking the classes, as I'm sure your son has seen, were practicing addicts. Like half of the people, there were 60 people in the class on any given week, like 10 or 20 of them wouldn't show up because they were back using or whatever. So it would dwindle down, dwindle. And then I finished, and I got that job at the bridge and started working there, and I completed my 6,000 hours. And that was now 5 years ago. But it was just, as they say in recovery, it was just one foot in front of the other, living my life in between, and taking the classes and not freaking out about the future, not regretting the past, just kind of trying to stay where I was. And then all of a sudden you're doing it, and that was it. So it was kind of a long journey, but it was really just one class at a time that was so eye-opening, and I loved this. So
Wow.
that's how I got involved.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
I mean, I've had my own addiction issues, eating disorder, sex addict, that was how I acted out in my days in LA. And it makes me sad when I think back to that, how needy I was, how much I missed out, because of those addictions. And they were, they rocked my world, they were leading me rather than me living my life, so
Mm.
very happy I'm past that now.
Well, again, because you're being wonderfully transparent, in the interest of transparency, I will meet you part way there. And I've had
Okay.
my issues, Stacey. I've had my addiction issues and things that still come up in the dead of night that haunt me, ghosts and
Right.
stuff. So, Amazing, good for you. And that's I like this. This is what I want these interviews to be, and this is amazing. I love that we're getting to these things. Let's all hold hands and take a bit of a big jump now. I'm gonna, because you said 14 was when you went into the acting,
Yeah.
and you kind of started out mostly on TV, right? On the
Commercials and
things,
small parts films.
chips.
Yep.
Beautiful. What were
Theater.
pardon me?
And theater.
And theater, right?
Like
Okay.
off Broadway and summer stock and all of that. Yeah.
When you look at that, first of all, let's start. What are your earliest kind of positive memories in as you got into the acting business?
Oh, wow. I loved all of it. I was living in New York City, and I was one of those 14 going on 40-year-olds. So
Mhm.
I was incredibly independent because of my incredibly dysfunctional family. So I kind of became the parent, and I was out there, and easy to get around New York. And I took myself to auditions literally, it was almost every day after high school. It took me 2 years before I got my first national commercial. 2 years of auditioning for films and TV and things and commercials. And then I booked 2 on my 16th birthday. And then I didn't stop working for years. It just kind of happened that way. And then I met Woody Allen. He cast me in Annie Hall. And then I was doing, some theater, got my equity card. And then when I had turned 18, they flew me out to California to do a part in a film called California Dreaming. And then I wound up staying there because, I met with an agent there, and they said, "Oh, come on, there's so much more work for you." And there was, I really wanted to do more film than theater.
Mhm.
And that was where the film and TV industry was, and still pretty much is. And I didn't stop working for years. It was amazing. I feel very blessed, very lucky, but I also know that I did not have that self-esteem and that killer drive that you need. It's not just the drive. I had the drive, and I loved competing, and I loved beating this one out for the job and the other one. But there are 2 women who come to mind: Sharon Stone and Madonna.
Mhm.
I've met both of them, and I knew Sharon pretty well. They were ruthless in their drive to get ahead. They would do anything, and probably did. I never had that confidence in myself. I think I felt so broken and so fragile really underneath. I mean, I could put on a good front, but you have to have big balls, especially as a woman, to get ahead
Yeah.
in Hollywood. And I'm not talking about sleeping with guys. I slept with really, really, really successful producers and studio heads, and because I liked them and I wanted them to like me. It wasn't about, give me a part. I mean, had I been a different person, I would, there are many things that could have been done,
Yeah.
all kinds of things that wasn't me.
Mhm.
So, I did well, but, could have done better, but that's how it was.
What was the moment where kind of the light bulb went off with you, where you felt like, I mean, everybody's got, and I remember I was speaking to another lady about this recently, I think it was Debbie Rochon. That was that moment where you felt like, oh yeah, I made it. I'm really on the right path here. This is where I'm.
Oh, yeah, I never felt like I made it. I had people constantly for many years early on, when I was doing TV, and I try to explain to my kids that, yeah, when I would star in a TV miniseries
Mm.
on NBC or CBS, um, there was very little content. This is before cable TV. There was ABC, CBS, NBC, and PBS, and then the little networks, the little home stations that would play old movies. But everybody would see what you had done, So when I was working in the late 70s, early 80s, a lot on TV and in the films, forget it, because most of them came and went. But, people would come up to me all the time and ask for my autograph. Even then, I never felt like I made it because I was so busy and so insecure looking for the next job,
Mm.
thinking I'll never work again, I'll never work again, I'll never work again. And eventually I did never work again. It does happen. So that's just kind of how it is. I never rested on my laurels. I wish I had, but I think that's the case with most actors and actresses. I think that insecurity, I don't think most of us do feel like we've made it.
Mm.
I think probably even some incredibly really well-known people have that same feeling.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That makes
it's
sense.
just
Carl, are you
it's-
there, buddy?
Oh, I'm here. I'm here. Stacey.
We're talking
Mhm.
movies, my friend, and I know you had a question you wanted to throw at Stacey.
I have actually several about your early films.
Oh,
Go for it.
First, I wanted to say what you've done, and that it's all journey,
yeah.
and that journey is very important for what you do now, and that's a wonderful thing. So I wanted to say that to you first.
Thank you. That's very
You're
sweet.
very welcome. So it's interesting. I was talking to Limes. I run a network of podcasts. Limes is part of it. And also, we're hooked up with Incredibly Strange Films, which is a huge Facebook group of over 300,000.
Wow.
And we focus on a lot of under the radar films, of which you did several in the 80s.
Yes, I did.
There's a couple I want to mention. One is I went to see a film in 1980. I think it was in the fall. And then I moved to New York in 81 and I was listening to BAI. And I ran across an interview with Bill Gaines. And now you should know what movie I'm talking about.
Bill Gaines?
Up the Academy.
Oh gosh. Okay. Now tell me who Bill Gaines
Bill
is.
Gaines was the publisher of Mad.
Oh
He was
wow.
also
No way.
producer of it. They also had Robert Downey Sr. call in at that time too.
Love it. Yeah.
And all I could tell you is that he says it was a very disconcerting shoot. I think it was the first time I ever heard the F word on radio.
That's what Bob Downey Sr. said.
Both of them actually.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So I just wondered if you had any memories of that particular film.
Oh, I do, of course.
And a number of people.
Oh, I absolutely remember it quite well, being in Salina, Kansas. Lot of sex and drugs, and not so much rock and roll, but a lot of sex and drugs. and Ron Liebman, may he rest in peace. He was. I had no idea that he hated the film that much that he took his name off of it. I don't know what really happened there. I know Ralph and I became friends. Ralph Macchio was his first film. So I'm not sure what was so awful about the making of it that made it so
basically
difficult.
What I can tell you is that both Gaines and Robert Downey Sr. was talking more about the behind the scenes with the producers and the money and all of that.
Yes, that I did. I heard a little bit. You probably know more than I do because you heard that
BAI
interview. But yes, I've heard over the years these little, there was something between, which is how they got Mad Magazine attached to it.
Right.
I think that they needed that at the end to get attached. I don't really know because I was just an actress and we don't usually get involved in those kind of
Right, but
things.
the shoot
Yeah.
itself was
But
a good shoot for you?
oh yeah, it was a blast. Anytime you go on location, it's always very interesting because it's very intimate and you're living with these people and working with them. I mean, thank goodness we all have our own hotel rooms, but yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, that
Good.
was that was a fun show.
Now, Limes, if I can continue, I want to just mention a
Go
couple
for it.
others, unless you want to come in.
No, please go on,
Okay.
Carl.
So this year, a particular film of yours was released on Blu-ray, and a very good friend of mine, Dan Kramer, and Alan Arkish did the commentary for it. And it's a movie I absolutely adore. And it's called Get Crazy. And it got lost because of all sorts of things behind the scenes. But you work with Malcolm McDowell, you work with Lou Reed on that. You had a guy at a marijuana joint thing selling joints in the movie.
Exactly.
I gotta hear about this shoot.
Yep.
And you worked with Alan Garfield.
I loved Alan and Daniel Stern and Gail Roberts, and it was an incredible cast. And I just did an interview with Alan a few weeks ago because they're making a little documentary, or at least filming the actors and actresses and musicians to share their experiences about the movie, so that they can put that on the Blu-ray, the disc when it's coming out. So Alan's really psyched, and I loved Alan, and it was so much fun. We hung out at the Wiltern Theater on Wilshire and Wilshire and whatever the cross was, Wilshire and Western, was that wherever
I
it
think it
was?
is Western. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and gorgeous Art Deco theater and all the musicians and all the people. So we hung out, basically every day because there was usually one little part Alan would need us for. So we would, just kind of all be there on the set. And that was a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Real rock and roll.
That's what the
on that
movie's
one.
about, basically. I mean, let's face it.
When Alan asked me how I felt about the musicians, I kind of was a little bit like my character Susie, the young, kind of naive sister. I was probably too old to play the part because Susie's supposed to be like 15 and I think I was 22 at the time. But they had Lee Ving and all of these like hardcore punked out guys with the piercings and the piercings here and everywhere and tattoos and the blue hair, and I thought I was pretty out there as a person until I saw these people, and I went, whoa, I am straight as a friggin' arrow. Damn. But they were great. They were so great, and it taught me such a great lesson that fuck what people look like. It's got nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
It's who they are, And so Lee Ving, who had that, that white skin and the dyed black hair and the piercings and the things and really tough looking guy, was a pussycat. He was so sweet. And look, he acted nothing like what you would expect. And I love that. I love that kind of dichotomy in somebody, and it was amazing because there were so many musicians like that in the movie. The Nada group, the girls, they were really hardcore and they were so great. They were just people. They were just people. That was like part of their theater, their costume, all the piercings and the tats and things, So it was really fun.
Wow.
Good. And one last thing I do have to mention. You were also on a film with basically half of Monty Python, but I will always envy you because you were in a film with Spike Milligan. And that, of course, is Yellowbeard.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yellowbeard was my favorite film experience of them all because to work with those comic geniuses, Peter Cook and Peter Boyle and Marty Feldman and Madeline Kahn
Oh.
and of course, Graham Chapman and Eric Idle and we would all hang out. I'm really going to sound like I did a lot more drugs than I did in my because we all would like smoke a lot of weed. I remember and get high and improvise and laugh and laugh and laugh. So, anyway, we had a blast. And when Cheech and Chong, you can't do a film with them without smoking weed. And David Bowie came to visit us on the set and wound up, I don't know if they put him in it for a little scene or whatever, but David Bowie came. He asked me if I would like to fuck onto the banana bushes. And because I had a big crush on Peter Cook, and we wound up having a hot and heavy thing. But oh God, Martin Hewitt, who was the young guy, right? Isn't that his name, Martin Hewitt?
Yeah, Martin Hewitt.
Was just going insane that David Bowie was there, and David Bowie had rented a Jeep, one of those open top Jeeps, and wanted to take us driving. And Martin's like, "Come on, we got to go with him. This is David Bowie," and I'm like, I didn't care. So Peter Cook and I and Madeline Kahn got in the back, and Martin Hewitt got in the front with David Bowie, and we're driving, and David's fucking high as a kite and starts driving really erratically, like really badly. And I remember the big hotel we were staying at, this big resort, had this circular driveway, and he was going around and around, and we were like, let us get out here. And I swear to God, I thought I was gonna die. We were all like, Peter and I were gripping each other in the back, like, this is not good. And he took us, we went down the road, and he's going really fast. And I thought, I'm gonna fucking die because this crazy rock and roller is high and driving us, and no one will care. It'll be all about David Bowie. And we got out, and guess what? Graham Chapman got in, and Graham and Martin and David drove, and they got in an accident. Graham broke his arm. Peter got Martin got a little banged up, and yeah.
Oh my God.
So it was just one of those moments where thank you God, thank you God, thank you God.
Yes,
we all knew enough to get out.
Wow.
But it was, but it was all kinds of moments like that. It was a lot of fun. It was an incredible experience. That was, to work with those people, those stars, was James Mason, and
James
it was really
Mason.
extraordinary experience.
Yeah.
And had that movie done what they thought it would, they had such high hopes on it. Orion Pictures, they had a documentary film crew that did the making of the Raiders of the Lost Ark follow us on the set every day, because this was going to be like the second coming. This movie was going to be even bigger than Raiders of the Lost Ark. Well, no, we know that did not happen. So, but it was quite an experience. Very blessed to have worked on that one.
Yeah, that I mean, you take a look at what you've done, and a lot of people connect you specifically with Halloween 3, which I'm sure we'll get to at one point or another. But there are other things there that I was looking, and I said, of course, that's where I've seen her otherwise. And I think it's just important that people, know you did something more than that, and you had more experiences. So I just want to make sure that we
Thank you.
mention those for you.
Thank you for that, Carl. Yes,
Well,
I
actually,
agree. I agree. Yeah.
Well, actually, there's a perfect segue there, because, you're saying that Yellowbeard, they thought it was going to do great, and it unfortunately didn't.
Yeah.
And Halloween 3, which is, before I go any further, 1982 is kind of a holy grail year for me. especially Halloween 2, Halloween 3 and Blade Runner, which you're, connected with both of those.
Yeah.
And time has been really kind to Halloween 3 because that bombed, but with I'll tell you right now, loved it from day one. I will say to you, hand on heart, that is the best movie in that series next to John Carpenter's original, because it actually does something original with the concept. You've got that wonderful script by Nigel Neal, who did the Quatermass, which I love Quatermass. That was part of my childhood. And it just feels like every year that passes, people are finally catching up with Halloween 3 and saying, oh yeah, maybe we're over the fact that Michael Myers wasn't in it and it was a damn good film. That must feel good, right?
It feels amazing. It's quite surreal, I have to tell you, because I love acting. I always gravitated. Thank you, Carl, for bringing up those movies, because I loved comedies. Comedies really spoke to me. I like having fun and laughing and making people laugh. So, but I loved the character of Ellie, and I got her. I got it. So, and I was very resistant to audition for it because I wasn't a big horror film fan. I was personally traumatized by watching The Exorcist when I was young, and literally I couldn't sleep for like a month. It was so bad. And I don't like getting scared, but anyway, I loved the character, and it was, at the 11th hour, and they hadn't found the actress. And I went in and, got the part and started shooting like 2 days later or something. But it was one of those films. It came and went in the movie theaters in like 2 days, and thought, okay, next, we don't need to talk about that one. And then all of a sudden, this one, my agent, Sean Clark, came to find me, saying we're doing these horror conventions, and he booked me at all these conventions, which is how I met you, Stephen.
Yep.
And, I had no idea people had even seen the movie and cared about it. And you're right. It feels like the momentum is building. And I'm really proud of being part of that. And I saw the part 1, and which I thought was also great, scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And 2, I didn't love, because then at that point it starts to feel like most of the horror films, pretty girls, topless, gratuitous, show the tits and whatever. And then the, requisite slashing and blood and all that. And I'm not a fan of that. And what I love about Halloween 3 is that it's more sci-fi. It makes you think. It's a really interesting film. It's a little bit like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I think.
Yep.
And, it was working with Tommy Lee and Tom. They were both amazing, really amazing. And I'm so lucky because I get to see them when we do these conventions now. More than I did when we did the film. So it's great. I get to see them quite often. And we're all just kind of blown away by the response. And I love that. It's really, really flattering. Really.
I have to say something here. I went
go for it.
A screening of Halloween 3 about a year and a half ago at the Brooklyn Alamo with a friend of mine. And it was filled. Completely filled.
Wow.
And of course, Tom Atkins comes on and people go crazy.
Yep.
But the minute you came on, there was a guy back behind me. I couldn't really see who he was, but all I heard was this voice: "You're such a babe."
Oh, that was so nice. Tell him thank you.
Well, whoever
And
it is,
30 years ago, 35 years ago, a long time ago, 38 years ago. Oh my God, it's almost 40 years ago.
Yeah,
Hello.
I know.
Yeah, but
Scary.
You know what, Carl? You know what, Stacey? I gotta share my memory there, because when I came to Syracuse and yourself and Tom were there, and I was at the mixer at the beginning with the drinks and stuff, and it was wonderful. And when they did the screening, and you and Tom were sitting down the front, kind of like sharing memories and stuff. I have seen Michael Jackson in concert. I've seen some of the biggest concerts ever. And I have never felt electricity like that in a room. The people were thrilled. And there was a moment there where I can't remember if it was you or Tom. There was three guys that had the masks on.
Mhm.
And you guys were like, wow, look at the guys up there. And they stood up and they were like, whoa, and they were like
Yeah.
high-fiving each other because, and then when they got into the movie, people would, it was like the Rocky Horror Show. People, there were
Yeah.
certain bits and people were
Right.
like saying it. And then when you were in the motel and everyone's like, whoa, like it was just, oh my God, I carry that. I'll carry that for the rest of my life.
Wow.
But the Blade Runner, if I may.
Yeah.
I love that is my ultimate movie. It's my favorite movie of all time. I love it.
Wow.
And I will tell you right now, I have in my mind a cut of that movie where you are Mary, the replicant, and I would love to have seen that.
Me too.
You know,
I would have too.
I don't want to, go to a negative place, but how did that feel at that time, Stacey?
Oh wow. It was I got to be part of it
Yeah.
because, well, first of all, I auditioned for the part of Pris.
Pris, right?
I
Yeah.
auditioned for the part of Pris, and there were two couples. It was down to me. I was, this petite brunette then, and there was this tall, beautiful, wonderful actress, Nina Axelrod. And then there was the other pairing was Daryl Hannah and Sean Young. And rumor has it that Sean and Ridley were kind of having a little thing, whatever. But that's not why we didn't get it. First of all, they were amazing. But Ridley didn't think, and rightly so, that I could convincingly beat up Harrison Ford in that scene where Pris, does all those kicks and things.
Yeah.
And, Harrison Ford's a decent sized guy. He's not like a giant, but he's he's a big guy. And Daryl is, close to 5'10", maybe 6 feet. She's a big, stunning, statuesque, gorgeous woman. And so that I did not get that part. We did screen test, 35 millimeter, full makeup, full wardrobe. And I have a copy of that, or it's actually in the Blu-ray of that. I mean, they took time like they probably did for Gone with the Wind screen tests. I mean, it was really something. Nobody did that in those days. And so Ridley liked my look. And then he called my agent and said, well, look, we have this part of Pris. And my agent at the time said, nah, don't do it. I said, no, I want to do this part. And it was a great part. And Mary had this death scene. So it was quite something. And I was, hanging out on the set with Rutger Hauer and Daryl and everybody, and doing the makeup and the wardrobe, because they really, really took incredible pains to do the, very, very professional, and it was a very important part of the movie. And then I got this call. The actors' strike had happened, and they were way over budget, and they hadn't even gotten near my part. And I got a call from Michael Dealey, the producer. I remember on a payphone at Jane Fonda's workout, and he had called, and I called him back, and he said, well, darling, we're so far over budget, and we haven't gotten to your part, and we're just going to have to write you out. I'm so sorry. And I was like, shocked. And, I had a feeling it was going to be a very successful film. And of course it was. And that would have been really something, because it's also one of my favorite films. I think it's extraordinary. And Ridley was at his absolute best in that incredible film. Yeah. And so, just even a little tiny part in a film like that could have changed the trajectory of things. But, that's not how it was meant to be. So, but I was lucky to be this close to it,
Well, you are, from someone who is like, I consider myself something of a scholar of that film, I hope.
Mm.
Together with 25 cents, you could probably get on a bus with that from me. But you are, to me, you are part of that and to most fans, you are part of that legacy, and you always will be.
Yeah.
So, amazing.
Very, very blessed to be part of it anyway. Yeah.
We're coming close to time now, so there's just a couple more questions I do really want to ask you, and that is, and probably this one, I'm going to actually boil it down to one, and that is, Stacey, there are a lot of young women that have been watching these interviews that I've been doing over the month, and they're watching, and they are at that point where they love films, they want to become a creator, maybe they want to become a counselor. Right? Everybody has a different journey.
Yeah.
What would you give as your unique advice to those women that are watching and listening to this interview when it goes live tonight?
Are you asking how they should make decisions in their life, or what?
Advice for how they, for maybe how they could start their journey, or just what you would like to impart in your way of your wisdom to them.
Oh, you are a very good interviewer. Wow, you asked some very tough but interesting questions. So, the one thing that I tell my kids, the most important thing I've learned about choices in life, and I think that's really all it comes down to, is these choices that we make in life, constant choices. Do I marry this one? Should I go here? Do I want to be friends with this one? Do I want to do this job? Do I want to take that job? Do I want to quit this job? And that is, the answers are in our body. And that to really listen, not to your head. God, no, don't listen to your head because that'll tell us all kinds of things. And your heart, we can get sentimental. We can make wrong decisions based on our hearts as well. You have to listen to your guts.
Yeah.
And I remember having to make a very, very, very difficult decision. And I just remember that when my friends helped me and said, look, you don't have to do this. I don't need to get into details because we don't have time. Another time I'll tell you. And when they said you don't have to do this, I went, and it was it was a life-changing decision. Marrying somebody, moving to Romania, it was a whole drama. And I went, oh, I don't have to. And I felt this like 10-ton weight lifted from my body. And my body was telling me that was the right answer, to not do that, because I'd been walking around feeling this heaviness, this something's not right. And so the answers are in our body, and that if you want to do something, imagine, lie down, listen to your body, ask yourself, how would I feel if I did this? Oh, okay. How would I feel if I didn't do this? Oh, okay. And the answers are there.
Yeah.
And choices, as I said, that's our lives are sums of our choices that we make, right?
Yeah.
Really. So.
Stacey Nelkin, thank you so much for this tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure and a joy. I've enjoyed every minute.
Well, right back at you, Stephen. Seriously, I mean that. You're an extraordinary interviewer. You really are. I've done a lot of these. He is, right, Carl? And you know your stuff too.
Absolutely.
But really,
that's why we have him on the podcast. He's good.
It was really a great pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very,
God
very
bless
much.
both of you. Be well.
A pleasure meeting you.
And good luck to your son. Be well, guys.
Enjoy your night.
God bless. Take care.